Amazon's Fallout series brought forth some much-needed new content to the Fallout universe. With it came a multitude of unique characters, one of which I consider to be the unofficial fourth protagonist of the show. I'm of course talking about Norm MacLean, Lucy MacLean's younger brother. His character was easily one of the most interesting in Season 1, with his intelligent mind and perceptive eyes leading him to discovering some unsavory things about his home vault. Therefore, it is only fitting for me to ask the question, can you beat Fallout 4 as Norm MacLean? Before we begin, I must first lay out some rules for the run. A major one is that I cannot deal any damage to anyone whatsoever, as Norm is not shown to fight anyone in Season 1 of the show. So, this will be a pacifist playthrough, something I've never done before. Fortunately, in Episode 1, when Vault 33 gets invaded by raiders, Norm is shown being saved by Lucy. For the purpose of this run, and because there are some unavoidable fights unfortunately, I will be allowing my Norm to have his own Lucy to protect him as needed. I will also only be allowed to wear the basic Vault suit, as that is all Norm wears in the show. To go along with Norm's discovery of Vault 33's secrets, I will be completing the Vault 81 questline and discovering its secrets. I will also be collecting every holotape game, as Norm is shown to enjoy playing games on his Pip-Boy more than reading with his family during their book club meetings, minus Automatron, simply because I did not want to get it. I'm sure you'll understand my avoidance of its acquisition once we get further into the run. With the general rundown finished, it is now time to start the run. As with any Fallout 4 run, our morning gets ruined by a salesman's persistence, followed by the Great War, and our spouse's murder. Just another Saturday in the world of Fallout. Finally free of our frozen entrapment, the run can actually begin. I should note that I played on the easiest difficulty available, so as to avoid some of the suffering I would go through. Trust me, this was the right decision, as I would have to rely on NPCs to do the damage for me. Before leaving Vault 111, I first stopped by the dining area to grab my first holotape game, Red Menace, the first of 5 total. I wasn't very good at this game. I then juked out some roaches that posed no threat, got the new Switch 2 early, and used the cheat terminal mod to make some necessary changes. Just like in my Maximus run, I needed to use cheats to boost Norm's special stats to be show accurate, as the base game does not have enough points to allocate at the start. According to the Fallout Wiki, Norm's special stats are 3 Strength, 8 Perception, 4 Endurance, 4 Charisma, 9 Intelligence, 6 Agility, and 6 Luck. I also used the cheat terminal to change Norm's height to small, as he is on the shorter side. Any shorter in-game and I would not be able to effectively use terminals, something Norm was shown to be able to do in Season 1 of the show. Outside of the vault, there were a few things I wanted to grab before moving on. I, of course, wanted to hack into the terminal in the Hawthorne house in Sanctuary to show off Norm's hacking skills. I also wanted to use the Vault Suit Customization Creation Club add-on to change my Vault Suit's number to 33 to be more show accurate. Oh yeah, I also used a mod to change the Pip-Boy's color to be silver, like the models in the show. As always, any mods used will be listed in the description. I was trying to get some easy experience, so I aimed to help Wolfgang and Trudy at the Drumlin Diner right outside Concord by passing this speech check. Doing so gives me access to 2 new traders to sell off my goods to. This action pushed me over to level 2, and I chose the first rank in the Sneak perk. My next stop was Diamond City, the primary hub area of Fallout 4. I needed my own Lucy to protect me in fights, as alone I would be about as useful as my college degree. What better person to pick than Piper, the local journalist? She's not the best in a fight, but she's easy to acquire. I chose to not befriend her here just yet, as I wanted to try my best to not use her as much as I could. What a mistake this would be. Inside Valentine Detective Agency, Ellie Perkins informs me of the detective's disappearance, to which I agree to help find him. I also grabbed a copy of Robco Fun on a nearby desk, giving me the game Zeta Invaders, another game I was awful at. Now it was time to find Nick Valentine in Vault 114, deep in Park Street Station. All I could do here was run past the Triggerman until I got to Nick, so that's just what I did. Unfortunately, I was followed into the atrium. Before I could get to Nick, I had to lose my pursuers. I chose to sit in this storage room until I was hidden once more. With the terminal hacked, I was able to finally free Nick. Nick would be just the person we needed to help me find Sean, our supposed son. What would follow would be one of the most tedious things I have ever endured in a video game. There were at least 3 triggermen who come in through a nearby door that I must go through to progress. I needed Nick to make it through that same door to another door that is locked. I cannot progress without Nick unlocking this door. My issue was even after I lost the triggerman, they would still be after Nick until he was knocked down. Since he was not my companion just yet, I couldn't heal him with a stim pack to get him back into the fight. So I had to sit around and wait for him to stand back up again and attempt to kill the triggerman. This did not work well at all. Thankfully, the triggerman did not have to die. Nick just had to get to the locked door so he could unlock it. After what felt like an eternity, Nick finally unlocked the door, and we progressed to more floors of triggermen. Fortunately, they were a bit more spread out, so Nick was able to pick them off one by one. I somehow was able to persuade Darla to leave Skinny Malone first try, making my escape from the vault a cakewalk from here on out. Up to this point, I had reached level 5, selecting the first ranks in Life Giver, Lone Wanderer, and rank 2 of Sneak. Back in Diamond City, we describe to Nick our wife's killer. He believes he knows just who this person was, a ruthless mercenary named Kellogg. Kellogg was last seen leaving Diamond City with a young boy, presumably Sean. He owned a house in the abandoned West Stands, and with Nick's help, we search it, discovering a secret room containing everything a grizzled mercenary loves. These things included his favorite cigars, which we use with the help of Dogmeat to locate Kellogg. You're supposed to follow Dogmeat to wherever Kellogg is hiding, but seeing as this isn't my first time, I know exactly where to go. Before heading out, I need my own Lucy for the future fight with Kellogg, so I head to Piper's house, where I give her an interview of myself. After doing so, she agrees to come with us on our adventures. I chose not to take her with me right away though, as I wanted to get to where Kellogg was held up at first. On my way, I came across some people having a dispute on whether one of them was a synth or not. I didn't want to have any part in it, so I walked away, only to be met by them killing the supposed synth anyway. Curious, I inspected his corpse, and discovered that he was in fact a synth. Random, I know, but these are called random encounters after all. Discovering Fort Hagen, Kellogg's hideout, for fast travel purposes, I returned to Diamond City to recruit Piper. She'll be able to defend me inside of Fort Hagen as we work toward Kellogg. Back at Fort Hagen, I ran past the synths on the first 2 levels, as Piper was of no use here. There were just too many targets going after her for her to keep up. She wasn't much help until we made it to the command center, where Kellogg taunts us as we make our way toward him. Piper would try her best to take on the synths, but more often than not, she would get knocked out. Unlike with the disaster of Vault 114, I was able to heal her with stim packs. Unfortunately, she would not stay up for too long, and the process would repeat itself. Eventually, every synth would die, and we would be able to progress. I tried to run past a modest group of synths further in, but my attempt was futile. So, being a bit more patient, I waited for Piper to take out some turrets before the synth posse would show up in hopes my attempt to get past them would be better. This gameplay right here was what most of the combat footage from this video looked like. Me sitting behind cover, waiting for whoever was around me to do the damage for me. It required me to be more patient than I tend to be in these games. I thought an Institute rifle would be better for damage against the turret, so I lent one to Piper. This ended up being just the boost in damage she needed. With the turret destroyed, we could eventually make it back to that group of simps I failed to run past. And with more patience, run straight past them, seeing as the patroller was way too strong for Piper to destroy in a timely manner anyway. After what actually ended up being an eternity, the surviving simps lost their aggro against me and Piper, and we could finally face the man, Cornflakes himself. This was one of those unavoidable fights I mentioned earlier. I knew this beforehand, so I made sure to acquire a Fat Man mini-nuke launcher that I could give to Piper in hopes she would kill Kellogg and his synth bodyguards herself. My first attempt ended in my death. Learning from that mistake, I stood back from the blast and died again. My next attempt left me confused. Piper swiftly killed the synths, but then would take in the bullets Kellogg would fire her way, not returning them. It seemed like if he got close enough, she would weapon bash him, but this was not consistent. Reloading a save, my fears were confirmed. No matter what I did, Piper would not kill Kellogg. Defeated, I reloaded a final save and took matters into my own hands, killing Kellogg and failing the run. But the video is not over just yet. Let's see where this challenge takes us. With Kellogg dead, we can loot his corpse and confirm from his nearby terminal that Sean has indeed been taken to the Institute. I also grabbed a copy of Robco Fun, giving me the game Pip-Boy, a game I once again am not good at. Outside, I sent Piper back home, and the Brotherhood of Steel arrived. Back in Diamond City, we tell Nick the bad news. He has the brilliant idea that Kellogg must have known how to get into the Institute. We couldn't ask him, as he was now dead, but we could use a part of his brain, with the help of someone he knows in Good Neighbor, to learn how to enter the Institute ourselves. So we head straight to Good Neighbor, and enter the memory den. Inside, we speak to a lady named Dr. Amari. She needs a piece of Kellogg's brain, so we can basically read his memories and learn how he entered the Institute. Thankfully, one of his cybernetic implants had a piece of his brain on it. An incomplete piece, yes, but a piece nonetheless. Seeing as Nick is a piece of Institute technology, just like Kellogg's cybernetic brain piece, we can insert Kellogg's brain into Nick's head. Doing so allows us, once we are connected, to enter Kellogg's memories. Inside, we learn that the Institute uses teleportation to enter its grounds. We also learn about a rogue Institute scientist named Virgil who is hiding out in the glowing sea. Kellogg was supposed to eliminate him, but he never got around to doing it. Lucky for us. We needed to find Virgil so he could help us get inside of the Institute. How we knew for sure that Virgil knew exactly how to get in? I'm not sure. All of this questing helped me reach level 7, and I chose rank 1 of the hacker perk. Now I could hack into advanced level terminals. Afterward, I picked up another copy of Robco Fun, giving me the holotape game, Grognak, and the Ruby Ruins. Easily the coolest holotape game thus far. I used to fear the glowing sea, but after playing through Fallout 4 an incredible amount of times, it's not much of a challenge anymore. All you really need to do is pop some Rad-X, and try your best to avoid hostile enemies. At Virgil's cave, we meet the man himself. He's a super mutant that wants to return to being a human. He wants us to get his serum once we're inside the Institute. I don't get his serum, but he doesn't need to know that. Instead, we agree to help him, and he tells us that we must find a courser and get their chip, as with it we can teleport into the Institute. While we're away, he'll work on drawing up a blueprint for what he calls the molecular relay. Along with the chip, we'll be able to teleport into the Institute. I knew beforehand that the courser fight would be an issue, so I had a plan, and it required the help of the Minutemen. Before heading their way, I stopped by Diamond City to recruit Piper once again. She might not have been absolutely necessary for clearing the Museum of Freedom, but I figured she'd be a great help regardless. At the Museum of Freedom in Concord, Piper was quite the threat to the raiders inside. I cannot say the same about Preston and his stormtrooper aim low. With the raiders dead, we can speak to Preston and agree to help him. He wants us to get the fusion core in the basement so we can power up a suit of power armor. But before grabbing it, we grab another copy of Robco Fun, giving us our 5th and final holotape game, Atomic Command. I'm still bad at it. With the fusion core acquired, we can head to the roof and enter the power armor, only to immediately leave it. Piper and Preston are able to slowly chip away at the raiders' health, and the Deathclaw's appearance isn't half bad either. The difficulty here, though, came from the Deathclaw. Piper would get knocked down way too fast, so I had to solely rely on Preston's crappy aim to take out the Deathclaw. The best place I found to camp out in was the hardware shop right outside of the museum. It was close enough for Preston to hit the Deathclaw, leaving me to occasionally run out and lead the Deathclaw over. After about 10 minutes of running back and forth, the Deathclaw was dead, and Concord was now safe. Back in the museum, Preston congratulates us for our cowardice, and he and his gang head for a sanctuary. There, he asks us to complete a favor for him. He wants us to head to 10 Pines Bluff, so we can help out the settlers there. Doing so would help rebuild the Minutemen. The Minutemen would be my faction of choice this time around, as I figured it would have the least amount of unnecessary killing. Whether that is true or not, I do not know. The reason why I chose to help out Preston and the gang then was because of Mama Murphy. Through her use of the site, she can give us the recall code for the Institute courser we were hunting, but only while the quest Hunter/Hunted was active. At Green Tech Genetics, we can easily run up to the courser and quickly speak the recall code, resulting in its demise, all without me doing any of the damage myself. With the courser chip in my possession, I must now get it analyzed. Who can accomplish this? Why, the Railroad, of course. Everyone's favorite not-so-secret organization. So, at the Old North Church, their hideout's location, we can enter their secret code and meet the Railroad themselves. Inside, one of their merchants, Tinker Tom, can crack the chip's code, giving us the data it held. Back at his cave, we tell Virgil the good news, and he provides us with a makeshift copy of blueprints for the molecular relay. We need a faction's help in building it, and the Minutemen would be perfect for this. Except we needed to help the settlers of 10 Pines Bluff first. Ugh. I tried to lure a pack of wild mongrels to kill the settlers there so I wouldn't have to complete their quest, but they just would not die. They almost always send you to the Corvega assembly plant, a behemoth of a location, but thankfully for me, you only need to kill the final boss at the end of the dungeon. I was super worried about how long this location would take me, but I got lucky and something blew up inside of the plant, killing the boss and completing my objective. We tell Preston the good news, and he agrees to help us rebuild the relay. He also gives us a bunch of quests, but we can worry about those later. We give Sturgis the relay schematics, build, and then power everything we need for the relay to work. Sturgis wants us to download the Institute's secret files with a holotape, and then we are teleported, finally, inside of the Institute. Inside, we scan their network with the holotape and meet Father Sean. I didn't know that you could get banished from the Institute right here without killing Sean until this moment. This was another section I was nervous about, as I always thought you had to actually get deeper inside of the Institute to get banished. Whatever, it saved me a lot of time. We can now start the next step with the Minutemen by informing Preston that we have been banished from the Institute. He wants us to focus on building up the Minutemen's strength. Doing so requires us to complete enough settlement quests for us to unlock the ability to capture the castle, the Minutemen headquarters. I believe it is 4 settlements you must obtain under the Minutemen, but I could be wrong. It's a whole lot of boring back and forth tasks before we can go back to Preston, and he says it's time to take the castle. Meeting with the Minutemen who will assist in the takeover from Mirelurks, we can plan our strategy. I said we should draw out
those lobsters,
and they all obey, as I am the general. The following attack would be another tedious one, way worse than Vault 114 by far. I didn't originally have Piper with me during the attack, as I believed the Minutemen and Preston would be enough support for the attack. I was very wrong. The only survivors of this attack were Preston and the voice of Radio Freedom, as they were unkillable. Everything was going fine until the Mirelurk Queen showed up. I tried to avoid her attacks in the water, but she followed me. Back on land, Preston and the Soul Minuteman were whittling away at her health, but it was incredibly slow, as they would get knocked down. So, I went to get Piper in hopes she would help speed things up. While the extra set of weapons did help, it still took an outrageous amount of time for the Queen to die. With the Queen finally dead, the castle was now back in the hands of the Minutemen. We needed to continue recruiting settlements for the Minutemen before we could progress further. But first, Ronnie Shaw, an older member of the Minutemen, needed our help. She wanted our help in gaining entry into the armory, as it held what she called the best equipment the Minutemen of old had. She leads us to the castle tunnels and the general's quarters that would lead straight to the armory. Sounds like a cakewalk to get in, right? Wrong. Inside was a haywire sentry bot named Sarge that had to be destroyed before we could get past him. Ronnie kept running away during the fight, and Piper would continue to get knocked down. It took me a little over 20 minutes to patiently wait for Ronnie and Piper to destroy Sarge. But once Sarge was destroyed, Ronnie could input the password into this terminal, opening the way to the armory. The primary tools of value inside were the schematics for building artillery and these inactive laser turrets. Ronnie wanted us to build an artillery cannon with our new schematics so we could test it out. So we did just that, watching the fire rain down. Preston was pleased by our actions, but we still needed more settlements for the Minutemen. One settlement I went after was Hangman's Alley, right by Diamond City. I had Piper with me so she could clear the raiders out, allowing me to claim the settlement for the Minutemen. This man's father was kidnapped by raiders, and to save myself the trouble, I chose to pay the ransom, giving me one more settlement. The Abernathy family was missing the locket of one of their lost loved ones. The locket was located in USAF Satellite Station Olivia. I was able to use a stealth boy to sneak in, grab the locket, and rush out. Giving the locket back to the Abernathy family, I had another settlement under my belt. It just so happened this was the last settlement I needed, because the next time I was near the castle, the quest Form Ranks completed, and I started the quest Defend the Castle. The Institute didn't like how the Minutemen were gaining ground in Boston, so they were sending Crow Scouts in preparation for an attack on the castle. All I needed to do was prepare some defenses for the attack that would ensue. Everything was going well, and my quest actually got to 20% complete, but then progress halted. It turned out that all of my turrets had been destroyed. I thought that retreating to the stairwell to the castle's tunnels would help, and while the progress bar did get to 30%, it didn't get any higher. I fled and attempted to get any resources I could to repair the turrets. I also recruited Piper once again in hopes her additional gun would help. I didn't know this until now, but every time I would fast travel to and from the castle, the turrets would repair themselves. So instead of using my resources to repair the turrets, I used them to build even more. Piper didn't like that for some reason though, After fast traveling to and from the castle a few times, the castle was finally defended. Preston was out for blood after the attack, and he proudly informed us that Sturgis had found a way inside of the Institute. Sturgis informed me of an underwater entrance not far outside of the CIT ruins. That entrance would lead me right to their relay, allowing me to teleport the Minutemen inside. Before I did that though, I had one last loose end to finish. Vault 81. To gain entry into the vault, I must give its overseer 3 fusion cores. Thankfully, I already had 3 in my possession, so I handed them over right away. Now, I was free to roam around the vault. I did a quest to return a little girl's cat back to the vault, and when I returned, Austin, one of the vault's children, was in critical condition. Turned out he had been bitten by a mole rat from a hidden section of the vault. I'm not really sure what was wrong here, as Austin seemed fine, but whatever, I agreed to help. This guy named Bobby revealed the hidden section of the vault, and I entered. The rundown of Vault 81 is, in this hidden section, Vault Tech scientists were supposed to research diseases and their effects on human test subjects. They were able to look and listen in to other sections of the vault we are familiar with, I guess so they could test the diseases on the residents, but this didn't work out. The vault's original overseer knew something was up and locked the scientists in the hidden section, leaving the 3 scientists within to die. When we arrive, all that is left are the mole rats they tested on, their remains, and Curie, a Miss Nanny robot who was assisting them. Over the past 200 years, Curie was able to create an effective cure to the mole rat disease, just the thing we needed to save young Austin. Curie follows us to the main portion of the vault, and the vault's doctor, Dr. Forsyth, inappropriately administers the cure. The Overseer congratulates us for our efforts, and we can take the fight to the Institute. The underwater entrance appears to take us through an older section of CIT. You know, for being the supposed most powerful group in the Commonwealth, the base of operations wasn't at all that secure. With a push of a button, Preston and the gang are inside of the Institute. We aim to reach the reactor, so we can arm a fusion pulse charge that'll allow us to detonate the facility. In the old robotics wing, we sit back and enjoy the show of the Minutemen getting eviscerated by the Institute forces. Fortunately, there seems to be an endless supply of troops, so we'll eventually push through anyway. Once in the Institute's core area, it was really just a waiting game. The fighting did result in this crazy slaughter though. After much waiting, Sturgis activates the main lift, giving me access to the director's quarters. Inside, I am met by Father Sean, who seems to be in better health than I expected. I wish I could have ensured his demise myself, but seeing as this was a pacifist run, that was impossible. I instead hacked into his terminal, overrode the security, and engaged the evacuation procedures. Now I could place the bomb on the reactor, teleport away, and save a confused child. Getting teleported for the final time to the top of the mass fusion building, I can detonate the bomb, finishing the game and proving that you cannot beat Fallout 4 as Norm MacLean. At least not in the way I played. Thank you so much for watching. While this run was still a challenge, it was not difficult in the normal sense. It was instead a challenge in patience. I have never done anything quite as tedious as this in any Fallout game. I wouldn't recommend playing as a pacifist, at least not in the way I played, as it led to more frustration than fun. But regardless, I thought this was a great idea that deserved to come to fruition. Norm as a character deserves more recognition than he gets in the show. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, or even subscribe, as I plan for there to be more videos just like this one. This has been Cobb, and I hope you have a great day.